about the Inquisition. You have to say inquisitions. It's plural. And it functioned in different places under different people's control at different times. And there could be, for example, there was a Spanish Inquisition and a Portuguese Inquisition. And those were very different than, let's say, the Roman Inquisition or the medieval Inquisition. So it gets a little more complicated, especially when one considers that the Spanish Inquisition was under the King of Spain, as was the Portuguese was under the Portuguese, okay, king. And so it makes things a little bit more difficult. One thing about the Inquisition you have to keep in mind is there are actually two stories. There's the stories of the actual institution, how it began, how it functioned in different places, who controlled it, who didn't control it at times. Number two, then there's all the stories about the Inquisition. Okay, and so sometimes they can be very, very different. And like anything, aspects of the stories of the Inquisition grew larger in the telling by some groups. We also only associate the Inquisition often only with the Roman Catholic Church. Bad idea. This was simply a commonplace kind of aspect of different religions, for example, in the Reformation. They did it in different ways, but they would have their own varieties. And it was concerned with the area of heresy. Now you say, well, so what? So what if some people have different beliefs? Well, in the ancient world where you were a community, one community, having people who were different caused all kinds of problems. The heresy which really got the Inquisition going, the medieval one, was the Cathars. These are Albigensians. And a kind of an interesting kind of a group in southern France. They essentially believed there were two gods. A good God who was remote and purely spiritual. A physical God who at times was actually even called Satan. And these two gods are always in opposition. And anything touching matter was dark and bad. And so, for example, the idea of having children was a no-no. Is not what the ideal person would do. So, you know, the implications roll out in the kind of society it creates over time. So that was the kind of the heresy which really got things going in terms of the Inquisition. The Dominicans actually were founded to deal with the Cathars by peaceful means, by preaching, by persuasion. But at a certain point in time, one of the papal legates was killed. And so then the Pope called a crusade, and the French government saw this as an incredible opportunity, both of exerting their own force and influence, but also of cutting back the influence of the local nobility. And so they came in with a vengeance. And so they were really heavily, heavily suppressed. And so these things come out of real lived situations, and you have therefore more than one set of forces acting. You have the force, for example, of a church who wants to preserve authentic belief and teaching. You have and their concern for people's salvation. But you also have the king or the nobilities or whoever's controlling, and their ability to control a populace, okay, and keep it organized, not keep things in place. You then have also all those who will use the opportunity of a crusade or a inquisitorial procedure to get what somebody else has. And so it gets highly complex. You see humanity at its worst. The Inquisition is nothing that the Church really has something to be proud of. It's one of those times and places when at times we've kind of sanctioned and went along with and participated in things which Christ would be utterly horrified, condemnatory about. Turning the other cheek does not translate into the Inquisition. Okay? Who was liable to the Inquisition? Only baptized Catholics. The church only had control over its own, not over somebody else. People often react to the different, and it's one of the sadnesses of human beings. Let's put it this way, I think humanity, might say, as Mark Twain said, is the only animal that systematically goes out to kill its own kind. And that's the wounds that humanity has in its brokenness. And it was those wounds that, Christ came to heal. But sometimes his followers don't want to be healed. See, the point is this: God can use any instrumental causality he wants to create. So don't, if you try and think you got God in a box, he'll break out.